Can you do our laundry? Mom Jessa smiled, handing me a tote bag of spa clothes. We've got a massage at 11 and brunch after. She didn't ask. She assigned. My hands were still damp from rinsing dishes when she pushed the bag into my arms like it was nothing. Behind her, her mother adjusted a silk scarf and gave me a quick, flat smile, the kind that said, "We're being generous just by including you in the morning's errands." I nodded. Out of habit, not agreement. They left in a cloud of perfume and laughter sliding into my son's car, like they owned the air around them. I stood at the window for a few seconds after they drove off, the silence in the kitchen, pressing in like steam. The laundry bag was heavier than it looked. Terry cloth robes, slippers, what looked like a seaweed wrap kit, half leaking through a zip pouch. But then, next to the bag, I saw it. Jessa's handbag. She'd left it on the kitchen bench, right beside the mail tray. It was sleek, cream-colored with gold accents, and a designer name I didn't recognize but instinctively knew was expensive. I reached out intending to move it to the side, keep it safe. But the moment I touched the strap, a strange tightness curled in my chest. Not curiosity, something deeper, a hunch, a warning. I paused, told myself it was wrong to pry. But then I remembered the dinners they never invited me to, the weekends away I heard about. After the fact, the passive, "You wouldn't be comfortable anyway," remarks. The quiet exclusions. And the way she'd said, "Can you do our laundry, Mom?" as if I had no other purpose. My thumb brushed the zipper before I realized it. Inside, nestled between a spa gift card and a pink lip gloss, was something that made my stomach clench. My credit card. The one I gave my son years ago for emergencies only. The one I hadn't seen in months. I stared at the card like it might explain itself. The last time I saw it, I was slipping it into an envelope for my son. He'd just started a new job, their rent was late, and Jessa was still recovering. For emergencies, I told him. Only. But now here it was. Warm from her purse, smooth from use. I opened my laptop with hands that didn't feel like mine. The bank's website took forever to load the spinning icon, mocking me with each second. And then it appeared. $742, Serenity Spa. $384, Lumiere Skin and Wellness. $129, Cafe Mondo Brunch. 2 more charges pending. The numbers blurred, but the pain behind them sharpened. This wasn't a one-time slip. This was a pattern, a choice. I scrolled further. Weekly indulgences tucked between the essentials. Designer candles, nail appointments. One charge labeled gift shop, resort. Gift for who? My jaw tightened. I remembered how often I had stepped in. The $500 I wired when their car died. The check I wrote when their dog needed surgery. The groceries I just happened to bring over. The kind of giving you do for love, not because anyone asked, but because they never had to. And yet, now, Jessa had asked for nothing. She'd just helped herself. No conversation. No apology. Just the assumption that I'd say nothing. And maybe I would have swallowed it again, like I had so many times before. I held the card like it had burned me. And suddenly, I didn't feel old or tired or invisible. I felt ready. I meant to close the tote and walk away. I truly did. But the phone buzzed again. It sat there, face up, untouched screen, still bright. The wallpaper was a filtered photo of Jessa and my son on their anniversary trip, Tahoe, I think. They never invited me, just posted it later, like it was normal. The notification banner rolled in slow, clean text. Rick. She'll do whatever we ask. She thinks it's helping. Rick. A name I didn't recognize. I tapped the thread before I could talk myself out of it. Rick. Once the house is in our name, we can redo the main kitchen too. Jessa. We'll say it's for her safety. Downsizing. Daniel can help sell. Rick. Perfect. She's too soft to push back. The air left my lungs. They weren't just taking advantage of me, they were building plans on the assumption that I would keep saying yes. My own house. The kitchen I saved years to remodel the backyard my husband planted before he passed. They were already dividing it. Like it was theirs. I scrolled further. Conversations about managing me, about making me feel useful, about what to do if I got suspicious. Jessa had even screenshotted my calendar, once sent it to Rick, with the caption, "Still thinks she's in charge." My legs gave out. I sat at the table, the phone cold in my hand. I thought of all the times I'd chalked her comments up to youth. All the moments I'd excused the subtle digs, the entitlement dressed in politeness. And now, there it was, in black and white, betrayal with emojis and timestamps. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't overreacting. This wasn't miscommunication. It was manipulation. I set the phone down like it might bite. My pulse was steady now, cold but sure. I had spent years being generous. Now it was time to be clear. I opened my laptop again, this time not to scroll, but to protect what was mine. I called Daniel my neighbor and my late husband's closest friend for over 30 years. He was there when we poured the foundation for this house. He knew every creak in the floors, every hard-earned upgrade. And he knew me well enough not to ask why my voice was shaking. He just said, "I'm on my way," and hung up. 20 minutes later, he stepped into the kitchen with 2 coffees, a yellow notepad, and that same quiet nod he used to give my husband when something needed fixing. We sat at the table like we were planning a garden. Only this time, it was a cleanup. First, we called the bank. The card canceled. The joint emergency account I opened after their first baby scare locked. His name removed. Hers was never on it, but I checked twice just to be sure. Then we went through documents. Property title still in my name, thank God. Insurance, medical directives, the little things no one thinks about until they matter. I moved them along with my jewelry and my late husband's watch into the old fireproof lockbox we used to keep under the bed. It now lives in the back of Daniel's hall closet. They counted on your kindness, Daniel said gently. Not your clarity. I nodded. I didn't cry. Instead, I stood at the laundry table and folded their spa robes. One by one. Slow and precise. The eucalyptus scent still clinging to the fabric, like some kind of mockery. I laid the folded spa robes on the kitchen table, the stack neat and deliberate. Their eucalyptus scent filled the room, a mocking sweetness against the weight in my chest. I reached into the drawer, took out the envelope, and slid it beside the clothes. Inside was a single page typed, not handwritten. Clear, spare words. Trust is a gift. You spent it like cash. Underneath, on top of the sealed flap, I placed the card cut clean in 2. The numbers split like a seam, finally giving way. I didn't walk out. I didn't slam doors. I simply stayed where I belonged in my chair by the window. The clock ticked softly. The light shifted across the floor, and the house held its breath with me. Daniel had offered to stay, but I told him no. This was my moment. I didn't need a witness-only resolve. The letter wasn't revenge. It was a boundary. The first real one I'd drawn in years. Outside, a car door closed, then another. Laughter drifted through the open front windows. Jessa's high pitch, her mother's lower hum. They were still glowing from oils and facials from hours of being pampered on my dime. I watched their shadows stretch across the driveway, the matching shopping bags swinging from their wrists. The moment felt strangely slow, like the hush before a storm breaks. My hands stayed folded in my lap. No racing heart. No trembling. Only a stillness that felt earned. The front door opened, a burst of perfume and chatter spilling into the kitchen. Their voices softened, faltered, then stopped. I heard the pause. The quick inhale, the scrape of a bag against the table. I kept my eyes on the window, watching the last of the daylight slip across the yard as footsteps shuffled behind me and the room filled with silence that was no longer mine alone. The front door swung open with a rush of perfume and chatter, the same sounds that had trailed them out that morning. Jessa's laughter rose first, bright and unbothered, her mother's lower voice following close behind. Shopping bags rustled against one another as they stumbled into the kitchen. Then everything stopped. Jessa's smile slid away as her eyes found the table. Her mother's hand froze mid-gesture, still holding a boutique bag by its ribbon handles. My son appeared behind them, keys dangling from his fingers, confusion plain on his face as he took in the sight of the folded robes, the torn card, and the sealed envelope. "What is this?" he asked. "I don't understand," he added, when no one spoke. "I do," I said, quietly, still seated by the window. Jessa blinked rapidly, her voice turning soft and high, the same tone she used when she wanted something. "Mom, this isn't what you think." Her mother stepped forward, tone smooth and practiced. "Surely you see. We were only trying to manage things for you, Corlena. You've been under so much stress." I didn't move. "You used my home, my money, my silence." I said each word deliberate. "All three are gone now." My son started to speak, but the words faltered. Jessa's hands twisted together, the paper bag crumpling between her fingers. Her mother's eyes darted toward the letter, then to me, calculating. I rose slowly, not to loom, but to end the performance. "The guest house is mine," I said. "The locks are changed. My accounts are secured. This stops now." For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the sound of their breathing filled the kitchen. I turned my back to them, picked up the stack of bills I'd been sorting before they arrived, and began filing them, the quiet action, drawing a line they couldn't cross back over. The next morning, I waited until breakfast time out of courtesy, not softness. They were sitting in the guest house kitchen when I walked in, side by side, not speaking. The air between them was tight, tense. I didn't sit. I simply said, "You have 2 days to pack and leave the guest house. This is my home, not a gift, not a promise, a boundary." My son's eyes widened. "Mom, can we just talk this through? We didn't mean to. I heard what you meant." I cut in. It was written down, and it was enough. Jessa scoffed, arms crossed. "We've been here 6 months. We planned the baby's room. What are we supposed to do now?" "You're supposed to grow up," I said calmly, "and start again somewhere that doesn't require taking from someone else." She opened her mouth again, but my son held up a hand. "Let's go," he muttered, voice low. "We'll figure it out." I nodded and turned back toward the door. I didn't stay to supervise. I didn't check their bags. I didn't need to. 2 days later, the guest house was empty. Keys on the counter. No note. No apology. No thank you. And I didn't ask for one. The silence they left behind felt like clean air after a storm. No tension pressing at the walls, no pretending over coffee. I walked through the empty space one last time. The nursery corner they'd planned was still bare. The crib they ordered never arrived. The shelves were cleared, save for a mug I'd once bought Jessa that said, "Maybe later." I left it there. Back in the main house, I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee and opened the back door. The sun was climbing higher, lighting the edge of the porch, just like it had when my husband used to sit out there with his paper. I stepped outside, and for the first time in months, the house didn't feel like it was shrinking around me. It felt like it was mine again. The house was quieter, not hollow, but lighter, like it had exhaled with me. I woke early, brewed coffee the way I liked it, strong with a splash of oat milk, and let it sit while I padded barefoot across the porch. The planter boxes were still half empty from spring, so I filled them with thyme and sage, ignoring the ache in my knees. The smell of soil, sun-warmed wood, and brewed coffee felt like home. I didn't check my phone. Not first thing. Not anymore. Daniel came by later with a basket of tomatoes and a joke about squirrels plotting against him. We sat in the backyard and laughed at things that had nothing to do with Bill's boundaries or betrayal. Just tomatoes. Just squirrels. Just good coffee and the rustle of leaves above our heads. Jessa called once that week. I saw her name flash on the screen. Her photo carefully edited, always perfect. I let it ring. I wasn't angry. I just wasn't available. The peace I had now wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't arrive with a speech or an apology. It arrived in small ways. A clean kitchen without anyone else's dirty mugs. The mail being only mine again. The way I moved through rooms without having to tiptoe around someone else's moods. The sound of my own thoughts unchallenged and undisturbed. I started painting again. Not for anyone. Just to fill the silence with color. Some evenings I sat by the window with a book and watched the sun fold itself behind the hills. I didn't think about what they were doing. I didn't replay the things they'd said. I just let the stillness settle where the noise used to be. That weekend, I cleared the guest room. Not for them, for me. I moved my easel in, hung up a small corkboard, tacked up a note that simply said, "This space belongs to you." Because it did. And because for the first time in years, I believed it. The knock was soft, almost unsure. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment I debated pretending not to hear it. But something about the pause between the knocks tugged at me. When I opened the door, Marcy stood there, small, quiet, holding her elbows like she was afraid of being turned away. Her backpack hung loosely off one shoulder, and her hair was pulled into the lopsided ponytail she always wore when she did it herself. "I left my purple hoodie in the guest room," she said, "and I just wanted to say I'm sorry for how Mom talked to you." I felt my heart crack, not from pain this time, but from the way her voice wobbled on the last word. I nodded and stepped aside. "Come in." She didn't run. She walked slowly, respectfully, glancing around like everything might have changed. In a way, it had. The tension was gone. The weight. But her presence didn't bring it back. It felt right. I retrieved the hoodie from the laundry room. It had been washed and folded weeks ago, but I hadn't been able to bring myself to throw it in the box with everything else. Maybe I'd known she'd come back for it. "Here," I said, handing it over. Her face softened. She clutched it to her chest like it was more than just cotton and thread. I walked to the kitchen. "You hungry?" She gave a little nod. I warmed a blueberry muffin, the kind she always picked first. Set it on a napkin and slid it across the counter. Marcy sat on the stool and took a bite eyes wide, like she was afraid it might disappear. We didn't talk much. Just sat there, the quiet stretching comfortably between us. I didn't ask about Jessa. I didn't need to. Some things don't need repeating. Before she left, I handed her a new notebook from the drawer. "For your drawings," I said. She smiled. Not the kind taught in photos, but the real kind. I didn't open the door for her mother, but for this child I'd leave it unlocked every time. Months passed like pages in a book I finally had time to read. The guest house, once filled with someone else's clutter and entitlement, became something else entirely. Mine. I painted the walls a warm cream, opened the windows wide, and let the light in. I filled the shelves with cookbooks and blank journals. The air smelled like cinnamon most days or fresh bread. Sometimes I didn't do anything at all except sit in the middle of it and listen to the quiet. Daniel stopped by now, and then with things he thought I'd like: a set of watercolor paints, a ceramic mixing bowl, a basket of figs from the market. He never stayed too long, just enough to share a story or two, and remind me that some men grow softer, with age, not harder. Marcy came on weekends. We baked scones once, and she insisted on shaping them into stars. Her laughter filled the space so easily, it was hard to believe how quiet it had once been. There were reminders, of course, ghosts of habits I'd long mistaken for love. I kept one of Jessa's robes, the silky one she always left draped over chairs. Not to hold on to her, but to remind myself what I no longer had to carry. It hung in the back of the studio closet untouched. And the laundry basket. It sat in the corner. Empty. Light. Once that basket had held the weight of too much other people's messes, their needs, their plans. Now it only held what I chose to place inside it. That morning, as I folded my apron and placed it neatly on the counter, I looked at the basket again and smiled. I don't wash what doesn't belong to me. And that truth, simple, clear, and earned, was more freeing than any apology I never got.